Good evening and welcome to Local Food Forum's Better Dialogues, Food Education and its Impact, How Schools Inspire and Feed Our Youngest Eaters. I'm Bob Benenson, publisher, writer, editor of Local Food Forum, and we are happy to have you here tonight for this discussion of some very important topics because our children are the future of our food system. And if we ingrain the values of a better food system in them, we will celebrate the arrival of that day. I'm going to introduce my co-host, Sarah Stegner, and she can introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Sarah Stegner from Prairie Grass Cafe, and I'm very excited to have all of you on today. This is an amazing lineup of people that are in the front lines, making an impact in our communities through healthy eating with kids. So we're in good shape for tonight and happy that you all are here.
Thank you, Sarah. And so just in case you're new to Local Food Forum, it's a publication I started online 3 years ago. I'd worked in the good food movement with the nonprofit for a few years before that. And the purpose of it is to provide a platform that is directly engaged with our local food ecosystem and all the people working across all the disciplines, farmers markets, farm to table chefs like Sarah, food justice advocates, access advocates, food educators, to try and create more dialogue and more conversation and collaboration across the spectrum here so we can accelerate the growth of this better for you, better for people, better for the planet, better for animals food system and change away from the conventional food system, which is not serving the health and welfare and of people in the environment. So the first guest speaker, panelist we're going to have is Alexandra DeSorbo-Quinn of Pilot Light. And Alex is one of the people in this community who I go back the longest with. I came to Chicago in 2011, became actively involved in 2014, which was also the year that Alex came aboard as executive director of Pilot Light, which was then a very fledgling organization that was working to integrate food education into one school's curriculum in Chicago. And it has grown so much since then. So I'm not going to talk over Alex's story. Alex, why don't you tell the story of what drew you to Pilot Light and how you managed to expand it from that one school to so many schools across the country?
Sure. Well, Bob, now that you say that, you're right. We've known each other for a long time, and I'm grateful for it every day. I've loved working with you. And I'm excited by what you're doing here in the city, along with Sarah and others. I'm really excited to be here tonight. This is one of my favorite topics, believe it or not, food education. So yeah, thank you. And thanks to everybody for being here and for wanting to learn more. As Bob said, I'm Alex DeSorbo-Quinn. I'm executive director of Pilot Light. And I was asked to talk to you about what drew me to the organization. Previously, and this is going back 10 years now. It's hard to believe I've been here for 10 years, but I was working in public health. So unlike most of you who are here, my background's not in food. It's in public health research, specifically epidemiology and health promotion. And I was on the faculty at Columbia University Medical Center and developing, implementing, evaluating school-based health education programs that used hip hop to engage students in learning about health. And it was magic. Like, kids just loved it. They remembered what we were teaching them. They shared it with their families. And it was just something I loved going to work every day. I never, I really saw that as the future of my career. And life happens. I got married, and my husband and I decided to move to Chicago. So I started looking for positions, and one night I came across this post from a group of chefs here in the city, Matthias Mergis, Jason Hamill, Paul Kahn, and it was their first staff member at Pilot Light. They were looking for an executive director, And I remember sitting there, it was late at night, and I read this and my heart just jumped. I was like, wow, that looks like this is amazing. And the reason I thought it was amazing was because first it was teaching kids and engaging kids through the arts, whether it's the art of music or the art of food. It's very similar. It just opens kids' minds. It makes their eyes bright. They're excited. And second, I just thought it was so smart. And I'll share more about Pilot Light, but it's all about integrating food education in the curriculum and using food as a tool to teach. So using food as a tool to engage students in learning, and to connect them to each other and the world around them. And it makes total sense because food is, it's something we should all learn about. That's why we're here tonight. We all eat. We should have the knowledge and skills to make more informed choices. And this idea with Pilot Light of making that part of classroom learning and just embedding it into everything kids do was really powerful and exciting. So yeah, fortunately, I applied. I flew out to Chicago. I actually, for those of you from Chicago, I remember sitting around a table at Billy's Sunday at 9 a.m., I think on a Tuesday morning. And we had our interview, and I said to them, I was like, this is my dream role. I would love to grow this with you. And yeah, fortunately, they gave me the honor of the position, and we've been working together almost every day since then. It's I've continued to be inspired by their vision and passion. And so many of you are here because you're part of the Chicago food and chef community. And I know, like them, you share the importance of really connecting to your community and giving back. So it's been an honor through that to work with all of you and to see that commitment come to life. I can go on and share more about Pilot Light too, if wasn't sure if you wanted.
Thank you, Alex. That was beautiful. I appreciate you giving a kind of an overview there. And just before we go on, what is the goal? What is the outcome that you are looking for?
Sure, great question. So Pilot Light, we have two goals. The first is to engage students in learning. So the way in which we go about our model and our approach is that we partner directly with teachers. So we provide teachers with professional development, with lessons. We have food education standards, which define this approach of comprehensive food education and what it looks like in classrooms. But by partnering with teachers, we can make this part of everyday learning and part of what students are experiencing in their classrooms and in the ways in which they're engaged in food and connected to each other. So the first goal is that engagement. The second is developing knowledge and skills to make informed choices. And I just mentioned our food education standards. We developed those in 2018. I can drop the link to them in the chat in a moment here, but they are a blueprint for implementation for comprehensive food systems education. And the reason that we developed them was because we were, and some of you have heard me say this before, we kept feeling like we were being kind of pigeonholed in nutrition education or agricultural education. And food is everything in our lives. It's connected to everything we do. It's connected to who we are. And we realized there was a need to define that for teachers, for schools, really for all of us. And I'm super proud of those standards. Again, I'll drop them in the chat, but our first standard is food connects us to each other. And really that's at the core of what it is we're doing every day through food. We're demonstrating to students and to teachers and others within the community that we can better understand our similarities and differences. We can build relationships. We can come together. So yeah, that's what it is we're trying to impart.
Thank you. I love that. And next, I want to introduce Sebastian White. He runs the Evolve Network and has created it. I'm going to let him kind of tell you who he is and what he's all about. I had the honor of connecting with him through, it was actually an Instagram post that I saw, and I cold called him and I asked, what can I do to help, kind of thing. And I really feel like in this in this scenario that we're in, when there's so many issues in the world and so many problems, and you see somebody doing the right thing, that's when you need to take action. You need to say, what can I do, and be of service and try and make it work and support the person, because they're in the front lines making a difference. And that's kind of, I kind of see Sebastian as somebody who is impactful and right there in the front lines right now.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's an honor to be here. Across the board, Bob was one of the first people in media to start writing about us. How Sarah has deeply impacted me, mentored me, advised me, and cared for me so deeply. Alex is one of my favorite people in the world. It's just a really cool group. I'm really excited to meet um that I met Spence and Christy recently. So this is just a really cool panel, and I'm honored to be a part of it. For you guys that don't know, my name is Sebastian White. I am the founder and executive director of the Evolve Network. Our concept is actually me back up. So my background is in psychotherapy. I was working as a therapist with kids who were in gangs and at risk for joining before I took this project and this journey on. In the spring of 2020, I lost my aunt and my father unexpectedly, and I created the Evolve Network to honor their lives and what they meant to me and to so many other people. Just trying to keep their work alive through what I'm doing. So my concept in a lot of ways connects all three of us in a way that really can think can make meaningful change. Can I ask a question to the crowd first? Uh, I want somebody to give me a definition of education. Anybody gonna give me one?
You guys can type it in the chat, and then Rebecca will do her thing.
So far we have that the definition is learning.
Learning. Okay. I think I can roll with that. I think education has gotten pigeonholed into learning facts. And I think that that's dangerous because education is so much more. That's what I deeply love about what Pilot Light has done in their food standards. It speaks to education in a more deepful, thoughtful, meaningful way that I think we're trying to engage. I think that education is also therapeutic, and what is therapeutic is also educational. I think the greatest gift we can give kids is informing their choice so they can make it. Not for us to decide what it is, not for us to make the decision for them, but to inform, give them the best knowledge that we can give them so they can make a choice that is truly unique to who they are and what's so meaningful to them and who they are as people. That's what I believe education is. I tell people all the time, I learned so much in college, but what was most impactful to me is they taught me how to think, not what to think, but how to think, how to be curious, how to ask questions, how to be thoughtful, how not to just accept, how to go find my own answers and explore what that means. That's often lost in our educational spaces these days. And we are trying to use food as a means to re-engage that type of thought process. I think food creates these beautiful lived experiences that helps engage all the aspects of what is not just educational, but what is therapeutic, what connects people, how to think about decisions. If you think about a dish, having the choice about what to use, whether it's color, its texture, its flavor, and being free to live within that space is what I think the quality of being human that makes us so unique and makes our experience so powerful. And too many of our kids and too many of our folks have lost that understanding. And I think food is creates this opportunity to re-engage it in a meaningful way, if done thoughtfully. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. Really trying to change how kids approach the world. And I think food is the perfect way of about going about doing that. I've seen it in really powerful ways, from disclosures to changing mindsets to trying new things. It just expands just their perspective on the world. And I feel like, again, too many of our kids' perspective is they don't have choice. And I want to use food as a way of re-engaging what choice means and to inform it in a particular way so they can make it themselves. I think each kid has some unique gift inside of them. And I want to explore what that is because I think that's what makes the world the best place it can be. Not us telling them what it should be, not us deciding for them what it should be, but for them to embrace their own uniqueness and find that. And I just happen to believe that this farm to table process, engaging in it, exploring in it, developing the tangible skills, but more importantly, exploring the intangible space. And that's a space of the unknown. I can't predict what's going to happen in a class session with the kid. If I give a kid a knife, whatever it may be, right? I can't predict that. And that's what's beautiful about it. It creates these really cool connections, experiences, conversations, thoughts, opportunity to engage the kid where they are. And exploring that, I do think changes and educates. It's therapeutic. I think it changes perspective. And so that's who we are and what we're doing.
Amazing. I love that so much. And just to clarify too, that you had said to me, when they have choices, it actually gives them freedom. If you don't have that choice, you're limited to what you can do.
Yeah, I'll be really philosophical and talk about like Sartrean concepts about like freedom and nothingness, this space of nothingness. What Sartre meant was this space where I'm not bounded by any definition, stereotypes. I'm just free to be. And in that freedom, I can live out what is true. And I think that is the human experience we all deserve and should have. And I think food can help create that type of opportunity for kids to engage in that way of being. And I think that teaches the lesson which pushes further beyond just food. When people tell me I'm trying to like train chefs, not necessarily, not at all, actually. What I am trying to do is help kids live into who they want to be. If that's a chef, wonderful. I just think food has all these really beautiful lessons, from planting a seed, like all these different, like I talk about the duality of meanings. If you think about planting a seed, both literally and figuratively, it's crazy how plants take care of each other. Literally having your hand in the dirt, connecting with the earth again, changes perspective. It's a beautiful experience, and that's what we're trying to do.
And how many schools are you currently working in?
Currently, I'm in 6. Um, I'm also at Build, which is incredible. I see John on the call. But yeah,
Tell people what Build is.
historically, Build was working with kids who are violent or in gangs, but they have since really expanded their services in terms of what they offer kids and potential, and they've created this really beautiful space where kids can come in after school, during school, and have all these different opportunities, from seeing a counselor to taking a program with me to doing woodworking. They have a farm on site. It's this really beautiful space. Honored to be there and so thankful for what they're doing to impact Austin and that community out there and the kids that come in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sebastian. I I've ever since I became involved in this food community in Chicago, I've recognized that food is in Chicago's DNA. Chicago exists because of food. It was a central location for shipping and transporting and marketing the food that was grown throughout the farm belt in the Midwest. And we created the industrial food system that had its downsides, but it's also become a real proving ground for ideas in improving the food system. And one of the important roles that food has, and I think is a crucial role, is if we're going to restore economic and social health to our under-resourced communities, food has to play a big role in that. And can you talk a little bit about how what you're doing and what you're accomplishing with the Evolve Network reflects this?
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Bob. I think not just how we eat reflects on how we live, but the options that we have in terms of what we eat reflects our lived experience. Too many of the kids that I see out, if they see something green and they taste it, they usually start with grass. That is their description of any produce that's green. That's scary and dangerous, particularly because many of them are Black and brown kids who in their genetics was connection to the earth, right? Um, so th that type of mindset is dangerous. If you think about, I know I always tell this story, but it's true. I went to St. Sabine Academy in Auburn Gresham. I asked the kids, what do you eat in Auburn Gresham? They said cup noodles. I asked the kids what they eat in Lincoln Park. They said lobster and steak. That speaks to different. That's talking about equity value, right? That's how they believe the world sees them. The crazy part about it is they have to justify the cup noodles. The cup noodles become more important because they have to be, because it has to reflect that they're meaningful in some way. That's been taken from them, and that's awful. And so I want to reintroduce the kids to food that they don't often get to see or experience. Um, because I think that reflects in their value. It shows that I care. It shows that we care. It shows that they have every right to have access to the same foods that any other person does. Um, this activity that I often do with the kids is I give them a set list of ingredients and I say, build out a dish using these things. The first question the kids always ask me is, what can I add? Now, that's beautiful. Wonderful that they're thinking and trying to be creative and trying to add to the picture. What I think they often miss is the beauty in what's there. And that's why I try to stick and push the message. No, stick with what the beauty that you have there. Think about that in their experience, right? You may be limited, truthfully. Financially, they may have limits in terms of what they can have, but there's so much beauty if they can explore it and adjust it and think creatively and just adapt to that situation in a meaningful way where they can see their experience as beautiful and they can create masterpieces from those type of things and who they are as people and how they connect with each other in terms of their communities and how they can impact their communities. It's there. We just have to empower our kids to move that needle and start pushing this thing forward.
And it's also a way to reconnect kids with nature, especially kids who live in what we used to call the concrete canyons of an urban environment where, you know, they've lost touch with nature. Just working in the kitchen with natural foods or working in a garden as you did growing up with your Aunt Gwen, it's a magical thing, and it gives you a much broader perspective. It's that there's this thing greater than yourself.
For sure. It's like kids, what they make always tastes better than if somebody else made the exact same thing. It's the same thing with growing. It's more meaningful to you. It just is. The time that you invest in it, it changes that experience, makes you care more. Um, I think that's natural, and I think that should be a part of every kid's experience.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Sebastian. We're going to move
Absolutely.
to our friends from the Henry Ford organization in Dearborn, Michigan, near Detroit, Spence Medford and Christy Sherding. Um, I first became acquainted with them because they were looking for people who could help in the Chicago area as they started to plan out a big new program that they're planning, an event, a national event that they're planning for October, because the Henry Ford, which is best known for its Museum of American Innovation, but also has a lot of other things going on. I did not know that they had 4 farms on their property and that they were working with schools in the Detroit area on developing farm to school programs. So we can, I mean, school food has become a real problem over the years. It's commercialized and it's not the best. And so what we're all trying to do is create an environment where the food is not only better, but it's also providing more opportunities for schools to source from local farmers. So it's also fresh and nutritious and beautiful. And so the Henry Ford is now planning to have a national impact through this event they're planning on October. And I'm going to shut up and let them talk about it.
Oh, thanks, Bob. We could listen to you all night. You're very passionate about these subjects, and both Christy and I are honored to be with you and to partner with you and your great colleagues here in Chicago on this program. But I think before I start, I'm Spence Medford, Senior Vice President of the Henry Ford. I'd like to give everyone a little primer on who are we? What is the Henry Ford? So we are an educational institution founded in 1929 by Henry Ford. I think it's important to know we are not Ford Motor Company. We share the same founder, but we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're about a $87 million operating budget. We earn 65% of our revenue. The rest of our budget we have to raise. And beyond our operating budget, any new exhibits, new programs, new initiatives, that's 100% contributed revenue. A little bit more about our campus. We're 250-acre history complex right outside of Detroit and Dearborn, Michigan. We have 26 million artifacts in our holdings, and we have we're organized in what I would like to say 6 connected thematic areas of innovation. Certainly you hear the name Henry Ford and you think mobility, transportation, but we are much more than that. We communications and information technology, power and energy, social transformation, but agriculture and the environment is one of our key collecting areas. In fact, we have one of the finest collections, agricultural collections in the country, and I think our colleague, my colleague and friend, our curator of agriculture and the environment, Dr. Deborah Reed, I think is on this call. We get about 1.6 million visitors a year, 55,000 member households, and we do have a national television show hosted by Mo Rocca on CBS, the Henry Ford's Innovation Nation. So now, why are we here tonight? On the next slide, and I might just tell you, again, on our campus, I'm stationed here in Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation, but we also have an outdoor history complex, Greenfield Village, where we have 82 historic structures, soon to be 83, on our campus. We run the tour for the Ford Rouge, where the F-150 is made. Our Benson Ford Research Center is our library, where many of our two-dimensional artifacts are housed. We have a charter high school now in its 27th year, Henry Ford Academy. Hence why we're going to be talking about school lunch here in a second. And InHub is our educational ecosystem. Think of it as our online and in-person professional development for educators, and also home. We're also home to Invention Convention Worldwide, where last year we impacted over 180,000 students around the country with invention education. And now we can go to the next slide. So back in 2003, my friend and former colleague, who I think is on this call, Dr. George Moros, heeded the call to come to the rescue of one of the oldest urban farmers markets in the country. The vegetable shed of the Detroit Central Market was going to be demolished. It had been moved from Belle Isle in the 1890s to it had been moved to Belle Isle, and in 2003, the city of Detroit was going to demolish it. We came to the rescue. I think we secured the structure for $1, and then we had to raise the funds to take it apart, where it remained in storage for almost 20 years. Fast forward to 2019, this was a $5 million project. We reimagined what this market could be. And as for the Michiganders that are on this call, you know, we have some of the finest farmers markets in the country. Certainly, we did not want to take away from the great farmers markets here in Detroit or Southeast Michigan, but we imagined this market could be a convening place, a place where we could have the important conversations of the day around food security, around the slow food movement, food access. This market could be a convening place in the ultimate edible schoolyard in the country, Greenfield Village. But we were $200,000 short of our goal. We said we had 2 key volunteers led by our founding chair of our Carver Carson Society, Emily Ford, and Lauren Bush Lauren, who said they would help us with a farm to table fundraising dinner, wait for it, in the summer of 2020. So we all on this call know what happened. March comes along, and we thought this market would never be built. Well, a group of committed philanthropists, activists around the country came together, and many of which are on this call tonight, to say, we're going to save this market. We're going to bring it to life. The original goal was $200,000. By August of 2020, we had a virtual event, a farm to front door event that had raised over $850,000. And we formed what's called the Carver Carson Society in honor of George Washington Carver and Rachel Carson to do more than bring the market to life. It was an opportunity to actually think about edible education as a key strategic pillar of the Henry Ford, where we could convene the important conversations around food and use our resources, our educational resources, to really double down on these issues. Fast forward to this past fall, one of those issues that we've been talking about for years, thinking about our own Henry Ford Academy, was school lunch. We wanted the we'll go to this slide here in just a second, but we wanted to think about what we could do with school lunch and how we could use our resources to elevate the experience for our own students. So what we decided to do was that we were going to raise a $7 million endowment to self-fund our own school lunch program so that it could be scratch cooked, sourced regionally, locally here in Michigan, in season, and we would make it free, not just for one budget year, but we would make it free in perpetuity to completely endow it. But we wanted to take it a step further, and we announced in September at our Carver Carson dinner with Alice Waters, Jane Fonda, and historian Douglas Brinkley that we were going to highlight the great work that's being done, like right here in Chicago, around food and around school lunch for an impact experience for the month of October, which is National Farm to School Month, where we were going to launch Farm to School Lunch Across America. And that, folks, is where that's my cue to stop talking. And I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, Christy Sherding, who is leading the charge on what Farm to School Lunch Across America is, and will tell us a little bit about what our plans on that are. Christy.
Well, thank you, Spence, and thank you to Bob and Sarah for inviting us here. We're in such good company with Sebastian and Alex, who we've met and we've been doing work with. And thank you for bearing with us because they've heard this a couple of times, but we're really excited about Farm to School. And we were really excited about the Farm to School lunch program we reimagined at the Henry Ford Academy. And as Spence mentioned, we saw a real opportunity to lift up organizations that are doing fantastic work in this space. I think so many of these organizations have really overcome obstacles and challenges, specifically in school districts, whether it's charter or public, and are able to incorporate, locally sourced farm to table lunch for their kiddos. And so where we saw the opportunity was to lift those organizations up. And as Spence had mentioned, we are piloting a Farm to School Lunch Across America program this October. And going back to that slide, lots of questions. What is this? So the month of October is about 5 weeks. And so when we were looking at developing this program, where we're amplifying scratch cooked, regeneratively farmed, locally sourced, free school lunch for K through 12 kiddos across the nation, we really thought that there was an opportunity to identify different regions. And with looking at the month of October as being 5 weeks, we thought, well, we could do one day, but that feels kind of silly. And does it land? And how can we make this really impactful? How can we make this resonate with people? And quite honestly, how can we extend the conversation throughout the month of October? Because it is Farm to School Month. So where we saw the opportunity to do this was to create a program and extend it, focusing each week on one area across the United States where we could go into the schools, talk about where the kids get, where does the food come from? So many kiddos, and I've got 3, they're not familiar with like dirt to plate, right? They think food comes from a grocery store, or they don't know milk comes from a cow. It comes from the fridge and it goes in cereal. So we wanted to make sure that we holistically were talking about what what farm to school is, where they get their food from, and really connect the farmers to the chefs, to the kiddos, and then extend that outside to their communities as well. Because we can teach kiddos about things, but if we don't share that information with parents and the guardians and the stakeholders in the community that also take care of them, then, you know, it's not going to continue to happen. So week 1, we are looking at doing, oops, sorry, I'm still talking about this slide. Week 1, we're focusing on Southeastern Michigan, where our Henry Ford Academy is located. And then we're also partnering with Lincoln Park Middle School, who is doing really fantastic things in the farm to school space. They're harvesting their own tomatoes, and a local Detroit company is actually using those to make salsa. Very cool story. So we think that there's an opportunity to not only coalition build, but kind of going back to something Spence said, we want to convene these people and again, lift up these stories and really share them at a national level. Week 2, oh goodness, the Chicagoland area has been so fantastic with all the stakeholders in this food space. We have been so fortunate to meet with many of you on the call and to talk about this program, but also many others. We have wonderful partners in the Academy for Global Citizenship, in addition to Pilot Light, who are engaged in this program with us. Also, an organization called By the Hand. They've got a group called Bowen Harvest. They are freight farming down in the Altgeld Gardens neighborhood, and they're growing about 4 acres of greens in a 1 shipping container. And they're not only teaching kids to be entrepreneurs with that program, but they're also distributing those greens to their local community, where about 65% of folks don't have access to transportation or a vehicle. There's only 1 bus. And the closest grocery store is about 3.5 miles away. So they're really doing really worthy work in that neighborhood. And we want to lift that story up as well. Week 3 is a little bit different, but we will be in Washington, D.C., October 17th through the 19th, where we have been fortunate to partner with Alice Waters and the Alice Waters Institute on a program that they're doing that's highlighting school lunch in partnership with the Smithsonian. So we will be there, not partnering with the school, but we'll be partnering with an organization to continue to advocate for farm to school lunch that is locally sourced and regeneratively grown and all that good stuff, most importantly, free. Week number 4, we're headed to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where there is a gentleman named Bertrand Weber who oversees all of the school lunch in their public school system. And he is sourcing about $500,000 worth of produce and food from local farmers, growers, and producers in that neighborhood, and working within the USDA guidelines as well. So he really has a fantastic story to tell, and we'll be working with a couple of schools there. And then we round out October in Northern California at the Michelle Obama High School there in Richmond, California, which is just outside Berkeley. So all of these neighborhoods that we're working with this proposed Farm to School Lunch Across America program, we're focusing on lifting up people doing amazing things in under-resourced and underdeveloped areas. We can go to the next slide now. So what is this Farm to School Lunch Across America impact experience? So the next couple of slides are just a quick overview, and Spence and I will share information if any of you guys would like to hear more about this. I want to be cognizant of the time we have. So we are partnering with those 5 communities. We're identifying schools. We've got a total of 8 schools that we'll be working with, where we will be hosting a special school assembly where we introduce the students in that school to local farmers and chefs in their area. And then we're really going to share, again, the story of how food goes from dirt to plate. And then on the next slide, we will be working that week to host a training session for the food service industry workers and professionals that are in the schools and creating the food, taking, the produce and making sure that something yummy and delicious and nutritious gets on that plate for the kiddos. We'll also be partnering with local chefs in the area to provide tips and techniques for those working in the schools, maybe introducing them to a new ingredient that they're not used to working with, but is in season. Or if it's something like learning how to sous vide meat that is a unique way to really to serve and also create bulk meat and distribute at a scalable level for some of these larger areas. And then our goal is to ultimately serve a special chef-created, locally sourced, cooked from scratch farm to school lunch during this week. So again, really creating that through line for the kiddos, introducing them to the chef and the farmer, and really learning about how that food goes from step A to really landing on the plate and filling their bellies. Then on the next slide, lastly, we think it's really important to make sure that we've got a community aspect. Again, we can talk to kiddos all the time about these things, but we think it's important to involve local stakeholders and parents and things like that to ultimately create change. So some of the special community events we're talking about focusing on is really a farmer's market. What's a fun way to engage people, bring a sense of community, and build around something like food? It's universal. So working with the local farmers in the area that we work with on the school lunch, bringing in fresh food delivery programs for those neighborhoods that don't have access to a farmer's market near them. How can we get them that fresh produce and food in an innovative way? And then just really providing resources for farmers and chefs and working within the environment that the schools are located. And then also, being respectful of cultural differences. At Henry Ford Academy, we have a large Arab American student base. So, we focus on halal, but being respectful that every region looks a little different and incorporating resources that can really help them continue this program outside of the month of October. And then ultimately, we really want to advocate for change. And so we know that the most important thing to make change is to have voices that are loud and asking for it. And so if we're able to give them resources and lift them up and show them that making change in school lunch isn't as difficult as it may seem, we'll think that this is a really successful program. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Sarah, would you like to follow up on any of that?
I think it's just an amazing program, and you guys did a beautiful job conveying that. I wonder if people have questions right now, because this is kind of thought-provoking, I would say. I don't know if you have any questions, Rebecca.
The chat has been blowing up. I've been trying to monitor it, Sarah, but my fingers aren't that fast. So if people have questions, feel free.
Yeah, so one individual wants to know, would there be an opportunity to have a dairy farmer in Illinois and Minnesota be part of that FTS program?
I can absolutely say yes.
Cool.
And I will agree. Absolutely. We would love that.
That's exciting.
Great to hear. This is Christine Cliff. I'm with Midwest Dairy, so we cover those 2 states along with 8 others. So I've provided my email in the chat. So love to connect to see if we can make that happen.
And
Thanks. Good to see you.
some folks want more information and they want to know where more of a summary about that great program can be found.
We can share out, we do have a summary document on the program, and with our contact information on if they want to get involved, how they can do that. And that's what we've really hoped would happen by this program highlighting and focusing on the good work that all of you are doing. And Alex, you were with us really early. You were one of the first to raise your hand from Pilot Light to say, yes, how can we help? That others will want to get on board and be part of this, because this is a launch. This is a pilot year this October. We're in this for the long game. So, because we think change needs to happen around school lunch, and we think there's an opportunity to really grow school lunch in a real positive way, focusing on the importance of seasonality, the focus on regenerative farming, the connection of food and the environment. And we think as a convener, the Henry Ford can help knit together all the great work that's already happening around the country. We just want to shine a light on it. So that's why this impact experience that we're calling Farm to School Lunch across America is so important to us.
Yeah, and Arshia Farheen, our friend from Versailles Patisserie, asked, can we scale this program, use this program in Chicago, maybe scale it or make it easily usable for all? But I think you answer that, Spence, by saying this is going to be an ongoing and permanent program going forward.
That's correct. We have some initial seed funding from Ford Motor Company. Remember, we're not Ford. We have to go. Some years we get funded, some years we don't. But this was a really unique. Ford is really focused on food, and this school lunch program is really, the synergies are there, and so. The commitment we made to Ford Philanthropy was that this is only the beginning. We're in this for the long term, and other chefs like Chef Paul Kahn, Chef Rick Bayless there in Chicago that are getting involved with us have asked the same question. And we don't know exactly how October is going to look. We think it'll be successful with everyone involved. But October of 24 may look different than October of 2025. But Sarah, we're so grateful to you that you raised your hand early on and said, how can I help? And you've been amazing, both you and Bob. So thank you for that.
And
That's
thank you.
very exciting. Yeah, so Sebastian, can you talk a little bit about the kids and what kind of foods that you see in the school and what you would like to see happen?
Sorry, I'm having some internet issues, but most of the kids that I come across are not happy with lunches. Even kids that are hungry aren't eating at school. I know I did a class where we made a fennel pea shoot and tostones salad with the serrano vinaigrette, and the kids gobbled it up. So it's not about like how quote unquote fancy it is. They'll eat it. They're interested. If you do it right, if it tastes good, the kids will eat it. And so I would like, honestly, if we could do a lot of more farm to table concepts where kids are growing. Each school has a garden and they eat what they grow. They could help be in charge of some of the menu building together. I think some interesting concepts like that would be really cool to see. It would be really cool if we could get chefs to come go to schools and make lunches for kids. I know Pilot Light has a history of doing some stuff like that. But I just think that would be really cool to expand their experience of lunch. I mean, lunch is a really important time of the day for the kids. So I think that's really an opportunity that we have if we could take advantage of it.
Yeah, Spence, I think that what Sebastian was saying, like if you're using what's local and what's from the school garden, it may not be enough for all the kids, but it is what will be in season. So it'll definitely overlap in your program, right? That what is in season right now will be on the plate.
Right. That's right. And certainly, Sebastian, our vision is in each region that we go into is that we'll have multiple chefs that are working. I mean, it could be really exciting looking at each chef's take on the ideal school meal and working with the seasonal ingredients in that community. And what may work in Chicago in one community may work in Minneapolis in a different way, or in Northern California in a different way. But I think this is an important point. The one thing we don't want to lose sight of, and he couldn't be with us tonight, one of the farmers that we work with, we don't want to lose sight of focusing on the farmer as well, and the connection of the farmer and the land to the chef, to the plate, to the student, and making those connections to food and the environment. That's what we do every day here at the Henry Ford. That's what we do with the Carver Carson Society. And we think an impact experience like this has an opportunity to do that. So Sebastian, not to put you on the spot, but I do hope you'll participate in our Farm to School Lunch Across America in October.
I'm absolutely here for it.
Okay, done. You heard it.
Awesome. I love that. I witnessed it.
All right, we have witnesses.
We're
Yeah.
recording, so we've got it on
Exactly, it's
film.
recorded and everything. I just want to give our well wishes to Melvin Parson, the farmer that Spence was referencing. He has an amazing farm. It's called We the People Opportunity Farm in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And what drives them is to provide jobs and hope and opportunity for formerly incarcerated persons, of which Melvin was once himself. And it's just, and you know, we focus so much on farm to school, how we can affect kids, but there are also adults who need to be mainstream back into society, help to gain all the skills that they need to, you know, prosper in our society. And he's doing an amazing thing there. We have an organization here in Chicago called Growing Home that's been doing the same thing. And so Melvin was unable to make it for this event tonight, but we want to thank him. Hopefully he's listening in, and wish him well. You know, I want to ask, and I think everybody can weigh in on this, but I'm going to start with you, Alex, because you know, when I started visiting your classroom events with chefs, I was amazed because it was always in elementary school, and there were third and fourth graders, tots, children of an age that are apt to act up a little bit. And the fact that these kids were so totally engaged, so totally interested in what they were learning was just, you know, you used the word magic before, that is one of the most magical things. And those days that I spent in those classrooms were among the best since I, you know, started this second career of mine. But, you know, there's another factor, which is, you know, what I call upstream food education, because a lot of these children are raised in families that are, you know, generations of living with the conventional food system because of affordability, because of access, because of the ingrained habits. They're eating the standard American diet. And when they are working with a school, as they do with Pilot Light, as they do with the Evolve Network, and as they're doing with the school that you work with the Henry Ford, they're taking that home. They're saying to mom and dad, "Oh, you won't believe what I tasted today. It was so delicious. Can we do that? Can we grow a garden, you know, and grow our own food?" So, Alex, because you've been doing this 10 years now, and some of the kids that you were working with, you know, early on are now in college, can you reflect on what kind of impact that's had not only on the kids but on their whole families?
Sure. Thank you. Well, I mentioned earlier, we deliver food education in classrooms. This year, we're reaching 11,000 kids, and we do that through partnership with teachers. And that's really been key for us. We build teachers' capacity, as I said before, to integrate it into learning, to use it as a tool to teach. And the beauty of that is that teachers know their students, whether they're in kindergarten or, you know, they're a senior in high school, they can adapt the lessons to best support their students, to connect to their communities. A lot of our teachers work with farmers and growers. They work with folks like Sebastian, who are coming into their classrooms and doing really transformative work. They can make it real world and relevant. The complexities around cultural relevancy and food insecurity don't exist as much within our program, just because we're delivering our model through teachers, and teachers are living and working often within that community, and they know their students. When we talk about sort of upstream and grassroots impact, we do a lot of work with our teachers to support them in empowering their kids to be advocates and change makers. That's our ultimate vision at Pilot. We know that food education can shape this next generation, and whether that's through the lunchroom and what's happening in the cafeteria, or that's at home or in their community. We see it all the time. It makes a huge difference. I was going through at the end of the year, we have our teachers come and do what we call our data presentations, but basically it's teachers coming and talking about all the lessons that they've done throughout the year, Within our fellowship program, we're delivering 36 hours of food education, which compared to the national average, it's 9 hours of nutrition education. So it's really high dose and impactful. But we have a requirement in our fellowship that teachers do something called the food advocacy project. And I love this time of year because we start seeing what's happening in these classrooms. And our team partners with the teachers to say, like, you know, what issues are bubbling up for your students? What are they talking about? And the one that I was reading and watching this morning was really, really fantastic. It was on the south side of Chicago. And the teacher kept hearing his students, this is a middle school science teacher, he kept hearing his students talking about how they were concerned about food waste, particularly in the lunchroom. And they came up with this idea to have a share table at the lunchroom. I don't know if you've all heard of that, but basically it's a table where students put food that they haven't consumed and they want to make available to other students within the building to come and take. So over a series of weeks, the class worked together to develop a presentation for the school administration and the school food manager within the building. They presented on it. It was approved. And it's going to launch next year. And now they're in the process of doing a prototype for the share table and developing educational materials. But, you know, just thinking about some of the quotes from the students were shared as part of this. And they were like, wow, I can't believe I really made change. I really did something. I'm going to remember this my whole life. And you know, that's amazing when you think about being a child or, you know, a young person and seeing that what you've done has created impact and how that will stick with you. So to come back to your question, Bob, I mean, that's one example of many, many that I've been fortunate to see at Pilot Light and to see and in our work with partnerships like the Evolve Network and Sebastian. But that's real change. The other thing that I'll say in connection to the conversation around school food, we've loved working with chefs in classrooms and cafeterias and seeing the impact. We've also done a lot of work connecting school food with teachers in school buildings to really create a culture of food education. This year, we're actually in the second year of a contract with the New York City Department of Education. We've trained 186 teachers in that program and connecting directly to school food within a building, making the cafeteria a classroom, bringing that into, bringing that learning into the lunchroom and vice versa. And for instance, one of the trainings within that program, we had the teachers meet with one of the school food directors at New York City Public Schools, and to hear about the challenges, to hear about what they're working on, what initiatives that they'd really like to see amplified. And the teachers came back and they were like, oh, now I know I can ask my my principal to have a halal menu at our school. Or now I know that my kids can get involved and do taste testing and tell the district what they want. So just even thinking about ways we can break down those silos and give students a chance to be empowered around the difference that they can make is really exciting. And again, it's through the teachers and supporting them in building knowledge about
That's amazing.
the school community.
That's amazing. Thank you, Alex, for sharing. And just before we finish here, I want to make sure we thank our sponsors. Mariano is hosting us, and that's Amanda Puck, and she is not here tonight. It's her anniversary. We are so happy for her. But we want to thank the team that's with us today, and Rebecca Fife from Landmark Pest Management, who has handled all of the slideshow and everything and used her amazing talents to enhance our Zoom tonight. We are very grateful for your participation. And Chicago Chef's Cook, which is Ida Davidman, Darren Guest, Melissa Clark, and myself for sponsoring this. And then Nick Davis from Community Food Navigator. We are grateful for all of your help and your support. I feel that these messages are so important that they need to be conversations within our communities, connecting chefs and the experts in the field and then the public coming together and having these conversations. It impacts our communities and it lifts us up. So I hope that you got something out of this tonight. And if nothing else, walk away that you need to know that there are people out there making a difference. And if you can find ways to support them, do it. We appreciate you. Thank you all. And Bob, could you please tell them about next week? Or it's 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Unfortunately, timing of the calendar, 2 weeks from now is Memorial Day, so we decided we would not hold a webinar at the end of a 3-day weekend. But on June 3rd, we are going to be doing a webinar that focuses on sustainable seafood. It's a hugely important subject. It's important for the future of our fisheries, maintaining the sound ocean and freshwater environment, and providing the best quality of fish and seafood for consumers. We're working on our lineup, but we are really blessed to have a special guest, Chef Hajime Sato of Sozai Restaurant in suburban Detroit, and he has been dubbed as the creator of sustainable sushi. And I have tasted his fish, and it's the most remarkable thing, one of the most remarkable things I've ever eaten of any kind. And he's going to be here to discuss not only what's going well in our sustainable seafood community, but how far we need to go, how much more we need to do to improve the quality of the aquatic based food that we all need, because it's one of the healthiest things you can eat. So we'll be finalizing our lineup over the next couple of days.
I just want to say that there's a rumor that Paul Kahan is going to be on too. Now, it's just a rumor at this point, but I just want you to know that.
I trust the source of your rumors.
Well, it was a maybe.
Yeah, so we actually have quite a few of our participants still on. So Rebecca, if there are any other questions or anything else in the chat that you'd like to share, that would be a good way to wrap things up.
Yeah, absolutely. So Christy and Sebastian both posted links to their organization. If people want to learn more about them, they can do it there. Bianca shared that share tables are the heart and soul of the Illinois Extension program. So that's interesting overlap. And we have one comment that Sarah has always been innovative and ahead of the trend, which I couldn't agree with more. So thank you so much for those comments in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, with that, we will say good night. Thank you for attending. Thank you for participating in these conversations. Share the word. What we're doing to elevate issues of importance to our food system is pretty unique, we think, and we'd like to get more people engaged and participating in these programs.
And we are really grateful to the panel of experts that are here tonight. We appreciate you all.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating with us. And we know we'll be interacting for a long time to come.